All right, the Monetary Policy Committee held its last meeting this week, which ended on Tuesday, and of course it maintained its stance, retaining the key interest rate at 14%. Well, this decision by the MPC, how has it encouraged stock market participation? Joining me to talk more about this is the Head of Research, Vetiva Capital Management Limited, Olamilekan Olabode. Thank you for your time, Lekan.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, I hope you don't mind me shortening that name to Lekan already.
That's fine.
All right, MPC has retained its decision, keeping the interest rate, and our focus here today is the stock markets, really. But just before that, let's look at its decision. Let's get your first off take. Do you think it was right maintaining its stance?
Okay, I think from the previous MPC meeting, we already saw the direction that rate was going to be maintained at this MPC meeting, and so the decision to keep the key rates constant came just in line with what market had expected. It's important to note that this is like the 8th consecutive time we've seen the rates, be it the MPR, the CRR, the liquidity ratio, and also the asymmetric corridor kept at the same level. So it's very much in line with market expectation. Market expected it. For us, we think that there have been three key things for the CBN or the monetary policy to actually watch. The first one is inflation. Coming into the year, we had expected that inflation was going to be close to like a 12%, 12.5% level, but we've seen inflation sticky around the 16% level. Our expectation was that the base effect from last year was going to support moderation in inflation, but we have not actually seen that happen, and it's because we've seen stubborn food prices from the beginning of the year. So month-on-month inflation has been higher than what market had expected. So on that basis, we already expected that the CBN was going to be cautious in terms of cutting rate. A lot of people expect a rate cut, and we still believe that we're going to see a rate cut very soon. We expect to see a rate cut sometime close to Q1.
All right. Of course, the CBN governor also said that it may relax its stance, but of course we'll be seeing that by next year, exactly, on a positive one, and the single inflation rate also there. But we know that its decisions usually affect key figures, which depicts how profitable long-term investment is. Let's look at the effect of this in the stock market. Yes, so far with this maintenance of stance, has it helped participation in the Nigerian stock market?
I think what the economy needs as a whole is something to boost growth. We've seen GDP figures come into the market. We saw GDP figure of around 1.4% year-on-year growth in Q3. That was our second consecutive growth recorded after seeing about 5 consecutive sessions of contraction. So in terms of growth, expectation is that we should actually see easing to support growth. But the biggest challenge in Nigeria is that we've seen that there's actually the pass-through between monetary policy stimulus and actually the impact on growth in the economy is quite weak. So you would actually see that we have structural challenges in Nigeria that have not allowed us to see a smooth pass-through between what the monetary policy authority decides and what happens in the market. With that, you would always expect that even when we see moderation in CRR, moderation in MPR, we have not actually seen that affect credit to private sector. So in terms of does this support anything in the market? Not necessarily. We've not seen that, and you recall that I also said earlier on that the decision was in line with what market expected. So we've just seen sideways trading in the stock exchange market. All
right, let's get back to some comparison now. Let me take some words here. Supportive figures from the global perspectives, with global output projected to improve to 3.6% in 2017 this year from 3.2% in 2016. Now, the MPC argued that its decisions taken had positive reflections on the economy. Do you think so?
I think so. I think so. It's a very tough position that the MPC committee is at the moment. If you look at the trend of, just as I said, these are like the 8th consecutive time we've seen them maintain rate. If you look at the last MPC meeting, we saw about 2 committee members actually vote for a rate cut. This time it reduced to 1. We do not think that we're going to see a rate cut until like the March meeting. So I think it's positive. I think it's just in line with the global trend. We have some worries about the global trend, because if you look at the global environment, you see that, or the international space generally, you see that There have been rate hikes in the US, there have been rate hikes by the Bank of England, and we expect that that is actually going to put pressure on rates in the local market. So we expect that, you know.
All right, let's look at the interventions by the CBN, especially with the investor and exporter window, which the MPC has boasted that had increased liquidity and boosted confidence in the market, with over $18 billion in transactions since its introduction. Now, do you think we're going to keep having this kind of windows, or there's going to be a stop to it at a point, especially with the interventions that we'll see almost every week from the CBN?
I think I would say that the introduction of the ironing window is one of the best things that have happened to the financial market in the last 6 to 9 months. Okay. And what we have seen is that since the introduction of that window, we've actually seen stability in the FX market, and I would say that that is, apart from the back market, that is the only flexible exchange rate system that we have. Internally, we have not had a problem with CBN's stance in terms of its willingness to defend the currency, but we only know that throughout 2016, the biggest challenge we had was the ability of the CBN to defend the currency, given the weak FX, given the weak global crude oil prices, and also in terms of volume.
But do you think the CBN can continue to do that even to next year?
I think the key thing that we will continue to watch is to see where global crude oil prices tend to, and to see if we continue to see stability in the Niger Delta region. Once we see stability in the Niger Delta region in terms of oil production, and we also see stability in crude oil prices in terms of global crude oil prices, then I think that
we do not want to rely so much on crude prices. We're talking about diversification. We've been talking about that. But of course, we know, looking at the GDP growth rate that we saw a 1.4% growth rate. Of course, relying on crude earnings.
I think, yes, we want to diversify, but it's always important to note that diversification is going to take a while. So it's not something that we're just going to wake up and find ourselves where we want to be. It's going to take a very long time. Government income from crude oil still accounts for a significant portion of government earnings. So it means that, you know, we need to keep our eyes on what happened in that space. And we've also seen that in recent time, government have tried to focus on increasing taxes, which is another source of revenue. So until we begin to see all that diversification mechanism that they are trying to put in place support revenue, we'll still significantly depend on.
All right, we would have to take a break. Olamilekan would come back to talk about the GDP growth rate that was reported this week also, and unfortunately the effect or the report we got from the manufacturing sector, which is not encouraging. That will be after the break on Business Tonight. Stay with us.